This is the inner workings of Transcendental meditation. Its front group is the David Lynch Foundation. To answer your first question, this is called the science of creative intelligence. The science of creative intelligence is something like a Hindu version of Christianity's creationism. Both creationism and SCI are comparable in that they are religion rewritten in scientific-sounding language. Creationism is interested in reordering Darwinian theory. SCI is interested in reordering quantum field theory to pair with Hindu scripture. Although the average person bouncing wouldn't call themselves Hindu, but it is led by a Hindu doctrine and created by a Hindu guru. What these people are trying to do is fly. They have only gotten to the hopping stage as of now. They believe a force moves throughout their spine that catapults them upwards by saying a word in their head.
You're levitating in the sense that you go off the foam mat, but then you fall right back down because you're not really levitating to the degree that you can hover. So I don't know anyone who had ever got to hovering. We were just hopping along the foam like frogs, which was ridiculous looking. And they videotaped it for some bizarre reason. They actually allowed video. So people, all they saw was these crazy people hopping across the foam, and they didn't really know what it was like to do that. And to do that was really incredibly blissful. And we were all giggling. We were laughing as we would go across the phone. We were laughing. We were having a great time, and it was fun. Transcendental meditation definitely fits all the criteria of a cult.
Now, while the words they are reciting in their head are Hindu passages, you're probably not going to be surprised to hear that this isn't like a Hindu ceremony. No one has ownership of what Hinduism is, but hopping on mats isn't a thing historically Hindus have done. This is a TM creation and most likely, in my opinion, a way to extract money from people because these courses can be very expensive.
This is an organization very much like Scientology that charges a great deal of money for its courses and its training. So I've had complaints that people just simply ran out of money.
Adherents of the Transcendental meditation movement speak of yogic flying as an ineffable experience and a connection to God. Transcendental meditation scientists have found that through this, the world becomes less stressed out. The goal is to get the square root of 1% of the world's population to do this. This will bring about world peace. The leader, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, had connections to the Beatles for like 2 months and he got famous. Prior to his passing, Mahesh installed this guy, Tony Nair, to lead the company. He is the king of the universe. This hopping can bring about supernatural powers, invisibility, special sight, hearing, strength of an elephant, a way to bring heaven on earth, all backed by modern science.
I don't deal with money directly, but I'm conducting the movement in 50 countries. I can't be said to be no businessman, even though I'm not dealing with money.
Maharishi says, give a starving man meditation and he will no longer worry about bread and will be happy. This means a person knowing how to meditate would just have to wish for bread, thus he will find happiness. This meditation is in the public domain. Links down below. All instructions, all the mantras, all the meanings to the mantras. It's weird how people who have God, the secrets of the universe, and world peace always need to sell it. Dr. Herbert Benson did not. He studied it and helped millions. He gave it for free online.
When other thoughts come to mind, you passively disregard them and come back to the repetition. Transcendental meditation is a wonderful way to evoke the relaxation response. It's as good as any other technique. But from our studies, we found it was not unique.
Learning Transcendental meditation costs $540 to $980, though the David Lynch Foundation may sponsor some. But what is the ethics of people donating to you? In this video presentation, we recount stories in which people have donated thousands, some millions, some lost everything. What's the ethics of being a part of that system? This is a bit of a spoiler for later on in the video, but the mantras that you recite in your head have the same qualities as religious mantras, meaning that they are selling God for profit and are not telling you that these mantras are Hindu. That may be a big deal for a lot of people. The mantras are on your screen with the deity they align with. Luckily, you can use any word for this practice, and I advise you to do so. I am pro-meditation, but it is worth mentioning that the organization Transcendental Meditation is worth possibly $4 to $9 billion by some estimates, with 30-some organizations under the TM banner. By contrast, Scientology is allegedly worth $2 billion. Both figures may be inaccurate and are impossible to pin down. Maharishi was more businessman than guru. You'll catch on to that quick. According to cult expert Rick Allen Ross, it seems that Maharishi may have the dubious distinction of being the most successful purported cult leader of the 20th century. Transcendental Meditation's heaven on earth will not be inherited by the meek. The Kings have ties to Hindu nationalist groups, but we have to talk about Transcendental Meditation, what it is, its systems, why it can be by vulnerable populations, how it tried to attempt to get Hindu rituals in American public schools.
Basically, they make us do this stuff, and then they get irritated when we wonder or ask if it's religious.
And did you have to go through this ritual as well?
Yes.
The David Lynch Foundation seeks to help at-risk youth. However, they won't do it without a religious ceremony called a puja. I thought your goal was to help people. Then what's your goal, David? There's a lot of information, and it's about an hour in before we talk about the nuances of Hindu-based nationalism, but it's here. So grab a snack, back up this video to your hard drive if it goes down. It's not going to be a fun one, but I promise supernatural theme parks, though. To answer your second question, meditation, very good. That's why I'm giving it for free. This group is very bad. That's why this video exists. That's my thesis. Meditation, good. This group, very bad.
A group, close, doing the program, advanced techniques.
Transcendental meditators recite a mantra or a word in their head repeatedly 40 minutes a day. Most people who walk into a TM center learn to meditate. That's it. The inner party succumbs to living within the TM movement full time, adopting its philosophy, community, and practices.
Somebody I knew in the Transcendental Meditation organization, one of my mother's good friends, and I used to babysit for them. And when she committed suicide, my mother said that while she was having enlightenment experiences and her ignorant psychiatrist could not understand these spiritual experiences, everybody who did not do TM was considered ignorant versus all of us who had the key to enlightenment. And she said that this friend, by killing herself, was able to go completely into these experiences that she was having. I was about 10 or 11 at the time, and I remember sitting at the dinner table thinking, so is insanity our goal? Does enlightenment mean being insane?
Transcendental meditation promised initially enlightenment in the first 7 years of practicing TM. That was in the 60s. People today are hopping on rubber mats for more than, what I've heard, 6 hours at a time. I've heard for days on end. Imagine doing this for hours on end in hopes that it will stop an oncoming nuclear war. I'm a meditator. I use it to calm down, to get some sleep, to connect with God. But we're talking about systems separate from meditation. I believe Transcendental Meditation relies on this ignorance from the common TMer. This system of in-groups and out-groups helps TM control the conversation. This is why Transcendental Meditation continues to be so successful. A lot of people think, oh, it's just meditation practice. You know, Jerry Seinfeld recommends it. Sadly, it's not that simple. Jerry Seinfeld speaks highly of Scientology. They have a lot of very good technology. That's what really appealed to me about it. It's not faith-based, it's all technology. Transcendental Meditation would make the same claim that it's a technology or science or just a technique.
This yogic technology of yogic flying, and bring an end to all the suffering that comes from conflict, which includes not only death and injury, poverty also. And there will be no more war.
And this is what it's not. It's not a philosophy. I have no philosophy for you. When you learn Transcendental Meditation, no one's going to give you a TM philosophy of life. There's no philosophy whatsoever. It doesn't involve any change in lifestyle. You don't change your diet or anything. And the third thing is there's nothing to believe in.
Transcendental meditation has been called a client cult. That's what sociologists such as Rodney Stark and William Sims Bainbridge call this type of religious business. It's a fee-based organization that acts within the hierarchies of a religious sect. Outward, it seems more like a business. Inwardly, a new religious movement. A 1980 study of the organization through a German court separated in much the same way, with what they call the public level and the esoteric level. Throughout the video, we are primarily concerned with the esoteric level. The US government ruled TM to be religious in nature in 1979's Malnick versus Yogi, which will be relevant to our discussion of TM's presence in public schools. Beyond that, there's an argument to be made that TM's inner workings functions as a full-fledged religion, not just a practice. Dana Sawyer, an adjunct professor of religious studies at the Maine College of Art and Design, says, in religious studies, there's a phenomenological approach to what is the definition of religion, based on characteristics of behavior and thought. So if it looks like a bear, and it walks like a bear, and it eats like a bear, it's probably a bear. TM practices Advaita Vedanta, one of the major schools of Hinduism, with the terminology of religion to be recast to sound scientific. They never will admit to being a religion, even though, people dress up as kings.
Transcendental meditation is not a religion.
It's not a religion. And it's not a cult.
Not a religion.
The religious qualities of the group are hierarchical. Higher levels recite passages from Hindu texts, and upon completing a top-level course, you bring home your own Rig Veda. While Hindu, it's not uncommon for people to take on these core Hindu concepts as a science and worship like Jesus or Allah or Buddha alongside this Hindu framework. The average TMer can be anyone. There is no initial commitment. From what I have observed, it would be immensely hard to believe anything but Hinduism as a science in the in-group. It's hard to hold a conversation with someone in the in-group without having that opinion. The in-group does allow spiritual belief, but only to be spoken in one way. That being that Hindu Vedic texts are the origin of all other religions and philosophies. TM believes that many great minds and masters throughout history just appeared and bring about knowledge adjacent to TM's doctrines. TM chooses what masters are good masters and what corresponds well with the Vedic tradition. Transcendental meditation's alleged science, both in its metaphysics, prayers, and rituals, are Hindu, therefore religious, therefore can't be allowed in government and schools.
It's not a philosophy or a belief system.
TMers have different maps of reality, and it's important to deconstruct this group's views because they want this in places like government. I'm using the word Hinduism because what the science of creative intelligence is metaphysically, ontologically Hindu. If you were to go up to a person in the in-group and ask if this is Hinduism, they would not acknowledge its origins or qualities to be Hindu. In no presentation, marketing push, or anything like that would they ever use the term Hindu. They may use the word Vedic, which is ancient Hinduism, but they see these Vedic texts to be scientific, and most Westerners don't know what Vedic texts are, so they use the term Vedic or Veda, which means knowledge, instead of the phrase Hinduism. They use the same words Vedic and Veda interchangeably with science. It's not a religion to them, it's a science. It's quantum field theory. If you press them about their views, at least in my experience, they will probably stop talking to you and go meditate as a form of thought stopping. They do not tell you that what they are selling is religion, and that's just how this group operates. Now, I use the phrase TM, I could be referring to many things because it's an organization. One of the products they sell is Transcendental Meditation. TM sells TM like the Coca-Cola company sells Coca-Cola. It's standard mantra meditation. But this corporation is not just one thing. They also sell Indian herbal supplements, crystal therapy, because of course they f***ing do, and real estate. This like therapy can go for a couple $100s, which might be worth it if you're a cat. Ongoing projects in the works are peace palaces and towers, which are like science museums for their pseudo-science. They consult astrology there. They have spa services as well as prayer services where you pay ludicrous amounts of money for people to pray for you. These prayer services are called yagyas. I'm not sure if people are actually praying for you. I have yet to see footage of it other than this one video. It's up to $4,000. They have a global good news network, numerous websites of just like rich people pretending that they're kings, as well as radio stations that have 5% world music and 95% Eastern theology mixed with pseudo-science. In terms of schooling, Transcendental Meditation supplies consciousness-based education, which is like K through 12 private schooling and university schooling. It's a way of life more than a corporation, but it's that too. There are nunneries and monks who must pay to be monks and nuns. One doesn't stay there for free. The hierarchy is based on how much you spend. Courses run from $420 to a cool $1 million. It's not just one thing. That's your mantra. It's not just one thing. TM professes that we are in a bad time right now called the Kali Yuga. To counter stress, one must meditate or bounce about to bring about bliss throughout the cosmic body. The distressing of the world through jumping around is called the Maharishi effect. You bring the square root of 1% of the world together, bouncing. This will bring about a better time called the Sat Yuga, which is a utopia, heaven on earth.
And when our work is done, and Sat Yuga is set in stone, and every single person lives in a fortune-creating home.
All the high-end courses cost a lot of money. My parents spent many, many thousands of dollars on what are called yagyas, which are spiritual prayer ceremonies done by some people in India. Yagyas for blood pressure, for finances, for relationships. I have folders of receipts.
These are quotes from a 2007 essay in which former TMer Gina Catena recounts her lived experiences growing up in the Transcendental Meditation organization. She paired lived experiences with the criteria of thought reform put forth by sociologist Robert Jay Lifton in his book on Chinese brainwashing. This book is called Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism. It's a seminal work on the subject. There are 8 criteria in total. We'll go one by one. Demand for purity. Catena recounts, anything outside the TM world may be perceived as a threat. It was frightening for me to consider leaving the TM community many years ago. I was afraid of the negativity and ignorance of the world. I received praise and validation within the movement. The purity of our devoted community felt safe despite regimentation, dogma, professional struggles, repressed stories of child neglect and abuse. I lacked professional and social skills for the real world after a lifetime within the movement. She also alleges that some TM devotees refuse to enter a building with a south-facing entrance because it would bring mystical evil energy. She also alleges that they avoid their south-facing entrances and apologize for lack of alignment of walls and windows. She also alleges that the TM group norm continuously changes. This keeps everyone striving for the utmost growth and purity. In the 1970s, women were required to dress in casual, elegant business attire. Now women often wear saris regardless of their culture of origin. She also alleges that Maharishi directed us not to dabble in other forms of spirituality. We were to protect the purity of the teachings. Seeing a potential customer base, the TM movement then cornered the market on esoterica with trademark astrology, music, Jyotish consultants, which are Hindu mystics, and mystical gem sales, architectural styles, and expensive yagyas to generate higher consciousness, perfect health, and prosperity. Outside sources of esoterica are considered not as pure as those promoted by the Maharishi's organization. She continues, of course that of the utmost purity from Maharishi comes with the highest price tag, most exclusive social circles, and greatest restrictions upon outside influence. She also alleges that the basic concept is if one stays with the program, he or she will eventually receive the carrot on a stick, pure bliss or enlightenment. If one leaves, he or she risks losing everything. She also alleges that even long after leaving the TM community, many individuals continue to judge others as good or bad according to a pre-measured determination of spirituality. Their TM-based internalized idealism continues as a barometer of worthiness. She also alleges true devotees were indoctrinated through programmatic thought reform methods, commonly known as mind control or brainwashing.
And I have the story of a woman who was raised in TM in chapter 6 of the new book, Gina Catena. So When I'm helping people understand what happens in the Scientology cult, the Mooney cult, the TM cult, or any number of other destructive cults, I want them to first...
What's a TM cult?
Transcendental meditation.
That's a cult?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Big time.
I thought that was just like a method of like cleansing your mind. I didn't know that there was even a cult behind it. People practice it. They practice techniques of transcendental meditation alone, by themselves. Are they in a cult?
So the answer is you don't need to be in a room with other people to be in a mind control cult, but it can get inside your head and create a new cult identity that suppresses your real identity, and it's not healthy.
Now, Dr. Stephen Hassan, who is one of the world's foremost experts on mind control, cults, and similar destructive organizations, illustrated this drawing here. There are people who buy the product who are not even in the triangle, and then there are teachers and people higher up in the pyramid. According to Stephen Hassan, beginner sessions are sometimes free or cheap, but programs get more expensive. TM employs a pyramid-like structure, charging more and more as the person strives to become more enlightened. Dr. Stephen Hassan has compared TM's programs to Scientology's bridge to total freedom. There's no political spectrum for a sacred science surrounding hopping on a rubber mat to save the world. So all walks of life from all different political backgrounds can be involved. And when a celebrity is endorsing this, they might not know, or they might know. I mean, you probably didn't know about this hopping just a couple minutes ago. While outwardly TM looks hippy-dippy, at its core it's rather orthodox and in bed with far-right fascist paramilitary groups. There's no soundbite for a culture war narrative here, at least in America. That's probably why this doesn't get picked up by a lot of people. There was a front page story in the Chicago Tribune, a book on the matter, but there's a lot of secrecy and not a lot of interest in what most would see as a benign meditation technique, but in reality a multi-billion-dollar monolithic organization. As of writing, the American state Louisiana has tried to put the Ten Commandments in schools to oppress non-Abrahamic religious believers, and this needs to stop. Those bigots don't know better.
You know, I appreciate you pushing that left-wing narrative here, but here's the reality.
And patriotism. In the radical left, woke patriotic. We want our students to love this country.
This was the greatest country in the world. That has driven the Bible out of schools, driven prayer out of schools, and everything in education has gotten worse since.
You know, these are the fundamental tenets of Western civilization.
The Bible is a historical document.
Veda is the dynamics of the unified field identified by science.
I pray in particular for President Donald Trump and his team as they continue to bring about change to the country.
Dear Prime Minister Modi, I'm John Hagelin, quantum physicist and president of Maharishi International University.
They're the same picture.
But when talking about TM, there is nuance that the Chicago Tribune missed and watchdogs picked up on. TM hangs out with Hindu supremacists who sees Hinduism as supreme to all other religions and often lynches Muslims. Keep this Hindu supremacy in mind as why this matters, that these kids, now adults, were taught to recite the names of Hindu deities and had to bow before an altar to a Hindu guru. And also keep in mind why Transcendental Meditation would have an interest in these vulnerable populations. According to a WikiLeaks memo on how Transcendental Meditation operates, when you are dealing with someone, you give as little info as possible. You don't want to open new doors for people to ask questions. Just answer the questions they have asked.
They didn't tell them the meaning behind any of this stuff.
No, they said that it meant nothing at all and that it was supposed to help with relaxation and study.
This should not be in public schools, full stop. It's a clear violation of the Establishment Clause of the United States Constitution, which mandates the separation of church and state. This applies to all religions. Yes, under God shouldn't be in the Pledge of Allegiance either. Okay, so one civil suit surrounds a Muslim. That's ongoing. 2 cases were settled which were Christians. These people who dress up as kings are not above the law, and no matter if David Lynch made my favorite movie, it doesn't give him the right to go into children's schools and ask them to perform ceremonies to his gods. That's weird and bigoted. The goal of the late Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was not only to get a boatload of money, but it was also religious. TM's goal is to have people perform Hindu religious ceremonies to Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's master, his gods, and his holy tradition. They don't tell you that's what's going on when you perform this ceremony, but that's what's going on. If you ask if this is religious, they'll tell you no. The mantras they give you are religious prayers in another language, but they'll deny that.
It was, in fact, he called it a simple, natural, mechanical, scientific technique. And he claimed that the mantras were meaningless sounds. So he was framing it and selling it to the West in that package because he didn't want people to be terrified that they were becoming Hindus and that they were praying to Hindu gods, when in fact they were, without their knowing. Yeah, the reality is that the mantras are all associated with specific Hindu gods.
Right. Could you speak to, like, these are tantric bija mantras?
Tantric bija mantras, yes.
Right away, the problem here is not at all the worship of Hindu gods. The problem is that children are praying to gods they may not believe in, and the David Lynch Foundation is using methods of deceit to get them to pray to David Lynch's gods. This is going against their First Amendment rights. This is what I'm arguing against, not any anti-Hindu nonsense.
Maharishi found that that the way that he sold it was effective and it worked. And advertising is not necessarily the reality. It's not necessarily truth. It is a way to entice people to buy something. And he was enticing people to buy not just meditation, but a whole plethora of lifestyle changes and everything. I mean, he says that it's a simple mechanical technique in the very beginning. He said it was a simple technique, mechanical technique, and no lifestyle changes are required. And, so when that wasn't true, a lot of people got really pissed off. I wasn't one of the people who got pissed off because I'm basically a Hindu anyway. I was a hippie from the 60s. I have the t-shirt with Jimi Hendrix as Krishna. It
gives us kind of like religious teachings, even though we're not in that certain religion. It teaches us to do things that we don't really believe in, and it's giving us, like, they kind of make us do it. So it's not free will. It seems as if people are forcing you to doing it, or that if you don't do it, you get in trouble from it.
I think all the great religions flow to the one ocean, and that one ocean is totality. Totality is consciousness. There is nothing else but consciousness, and that consciousness, you could say, is the light of God.
Anyone can practice transcendental meditation. Anyone can practice transcendental meditation. One more time. No matter your religion, anyone can practice transcendental meditation. However, to practice transcendental meditation, one must innocently recite a religious prayer over and over in your head like so. Shurim, Shurim, Shurim. TM calls this a sound vibration. They tell you that each given mantra is unique to everyone. This is not so. They are really the names of Hindu gods in Sanskrit. This is prayer, and the TM organization does not disclose that they are using prayer. Hinduism is a beautiful religion. However, transcendental meditation should disclose that they are using prayers to those not of the Hindu faith. We will talk about David Lynch's guru later, the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, but what he says about the mantras is that for our practice, we select only the suitable mantras of personal gods. Such mantras fetch to us the grace of personal gods and make us happier in every walk of life. By the omission of the man who started transcendental meditation, these prayers are his personal gods and therefore can't be taught in schools.
So this mantra that we learned during Transcendental Meditation is a sound whose effects are known to be positive and life-supporting that has no meaning associated with it. I have been asked, but aren't mantras the names of Buddhist deities or Hindu gods or whatever? And the answer is a flat-out no.
If you are practicing transcendental meditation, you may be praying to Saraswati, Lakshmi, Bhuvaneshwari, Kalika, Krishna, and Agni and not even know it, which understandably, depending on your faith, may make you feel uncomfortable.
And if you talk during this quiet time, they will threaten to drop your grades. Students who don't feel comfortable doing the quiet time training will be forced to. This program should be removed from any public school because it is religious and forces students to do things they don't understand or agree with.
The following is a list of super secret mantras. I mean, not really. Not at all. This is just another lie. They have been available in India for centuries. They have been in the public domain for centuries, and are commonly known in India and parts of the West. They can be located in almost any free library, as long as you have a computer or ordering system. I'm not f***ing you. Ram, Sharam, Inga, Imma, Aing, Aim, Ainga, Ima, Sharim, Sharing, Karim, Kairing, Hiring, Shama. Boom! Saves you $420 to $980. When the German government was looking at the structures of the Transcendental Meditation Organization to see if they should label it a cult, well, they did, but they also found that the mantras and pujas are religious. We'll talk about the German study in a long while. The American government doesn't see these mantras to be religious, only the puja. The mantras are religious because we can see the qualities of the mantras to have a strikingly similar quality to the mantras outlined by British social anthropologist Sir John Woodruff. These books are on tantric bija mantras, and they were written in the early 1900s, prior to the birth of the Maharishi. TM initiated 5 million people, meaning 5 million people recited Maharishi's prayers without TM disclosing this to be prayer, and coerced them to take part in a ceremony that they were unaware of the qualities of. TM's mantras being secret is not too different from the Lord Xenu creation myth being secret, but Scientology eventually tells people about the creation myth. TM's whole business model relies on keeping the mantra a secret. So the only confirmation that these mantras are religious was when Maharishi admitted in 1955, 5 years prior to him going west, that these mantras are religious. I don't know who made this graph. It was either, I think, John Knapp or Mike Downey. Either way, there you go. Credit due. The final part of the word, which would be or ing, are known as the Candra Bindu and are both the same quality and expression in Sanskrit. They don't appear to change the meaning of the mantra. Think potato, same vegetable. That's why something like ing and m are different vibrations evoking the same thing. While I gave you 18 different mantras, they evoke the primordial essence of only 6 Hindu gods. Just these mantras are pronounced different ways. To me, these are very deliberate sounds.
That isn't to say that in any given language, the word tulip, the sound tulip, couldn't have a meaning that's been ascribed to it at some later time.
To evoke 6 specific gods with 18 different sounds just by happenstance, what are the odds? Minor thing, they are not gods in themselves. They are the essence of gods. They are a collection of qualities of God, such as agony, being the primordial vibration of fire. So it is agony. TM teachers know of the meaning of the puja. TM teachers are never given the qualities of the mantra. Not all TMers know the puja, but the mantras and puja have been online for decades. So for what reason can you not learn this all online for free? According to TM, it has to be taught one-on-one. They'll say that you might be confused otherwise.
Number one, TM is a very simple technique.
They also advertise it as a simple technique. So what is it? Is it so simple that it's hard to learn? In my opinion, a TM initiation is one small part of a larger client-therapist relationship, which will lead a prospective client to sometimes, but not always, and I need to underline that, but not always become interested in further goods and services. And this, in my opinion, is the true intent to get you to come into a center. Another thing is that they want you to perform a puja, which makes people say prayers to Maharishi's gods. And I believe it's a power thing.
The weird thing that they described to me was a ritual where they were taken one by one into a dark room, and a quiet time facilitator led them through a Hindu ritual called puja. This ritual is a spiritual act of offering your mind, body, and soul to a picture or statue. I talked to over 60 students, and they all shared the same story.
And they begin to sing or chant. I'm not sure exactly which one it is because it's in a language I've never heard before, and it goes on for maybe 8 to 10 minutes.
That's not all. To learn Transcendental meditation, one must do a religious ceremony called a puja. If you were to go on Google right now and you were to type in P-U-J-A, the dictionary would define it as, quote, the act of worship. In this puja, the David Lynch Foundation gives children flowers, fruit, and a white cloth, which makes the child take part in the ceremony actively. This is a religious offering. They pray beside the child in Sanskrit to the following in a foreign language: Lord Narayana, Vishishta, Shakti, Parashara, Vyasa, the great Gaudapada, the personified glory of the Lord Guru Dev, and then finally pray to the very embodiment of knowledge, the One, the Eternal, the Pure, the Immovable, the Witness of all intellects, whose status transcends thought. Yes, the Transcendent.
The Transcendent.
There's so many names for this field. The Tao, Kingdom of Heaven, all these names. Ocean of pure consciousness.
The Transcendent, in Transcendental Meditation, copyright, trademark, registered, is God. They literally trademarked God. The phrase, I bow down, is uttered in this invocation ritual 24 times. TM and David Lynch are not telling children this. They're not telling parents this. TM and David Lynch are not telling anybody this. The reason they select inner city kids is to counter, get this, stress. These children who are in poverty are often food deficient, and this organization is offering pizza as an incentive to come learn. Kids get sent to the principal's office if they don't comply in practicing transcendental meditation.
Right. So what type of rewards did students get for participating in the Quiet Time program?
Like bribe rewards, pizza, candy, fruits, and other stuff like that.
So you were actually disciplined for not wanting to participate?
Twice.
Actually,
yes. I was sent to the principal's office and they off on me about it. Asked me to not say anything else about the program because I didn't work there and didn't know what I was talking about. That they would deal with me if there were any kind of issue with me again in the program.
The goal here is not to relieve stress. I don't believe that for a fraction of a millisecond. The goal here is to indoctrinate children into something bigger.
Through my policies of Vedic education, all the nations of the world will enjoy automation in administration that we have established will truly be the guiding light of perfection, commencing now on the profound scientific basis of total natural law, the will of God.
The idea that the Lynch Foundation wants to go into public schools in the United States that are supported by taxpayers, in my mind, it's a violation of church and state separation. I think that their ultimate goal is to cultivate and recruit children, and I don't think that it's really so much about meditation as it is growing the movement and really beginning with children, cultivating their interest in TM so that ultimately they will be supporters of the movement.
And this is what it's not. It's not a philosophy. I have no philosophy for you. When you learn Transcendental Meditation, no one's going to give you a TM philosophy of life. There's no philosophy whatsoever.
No, it's a philosophy.
Maharshi has given answers to all questions, unfolded total pure knowledge. That is the answer to every question. Ultimately, every question that one asks about everything or anything comes to that one answer, to that one reality. And that secret of secrets is very simple. It is Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Everything is wholeness.
Mantras and the origin in Transcendental Meditation, no meaning associated with it. They are not the names of some deity. They are not the names of anything. They're just a sound.
TM takes religious concepts and states that it was rediscovered by modern science. They then conflate the two concepts, which are often very different, and state they are the same thing to attempt to get in places like government. One aside here is that is Transcendental Meditation even anti-stress?
Just trauma and toxic stress. That's families, that's veterans, and that's doctors and nurses and healthcare providers.
Talk about spiritual ideas in terms of scientific language. So when they use the phrase stress, they use the phrase stress a lot. Feelings of stress can go back from thousands of lifetimes ago. Do you know what that is?
I believe those are sanskaras.
Okay.
Sanskaras are impressions that imprint on your subtle body that, they're your patterns, deep patterns that are kind of running you.
And you have heard that being used interchangeably.
Yes. Maharishi used a lot of scientific language after about 1970 and onwards. He had been using very spiritual language in the very beginning when he first came to America, but then he switched over once he found out that people would more readily learn meditation if it were taught to them in a language that they could understand and that they wouldn't be afraid of.
Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was a missionary like any monk with a goal to translate religion to surpass or to be equal to the main enemy of modern religion, which is, science. To do this, he had to create new maps of reality. Over time, the language becomes just unrecognizable, with a myriad of scientific jargon and in-group terms. The Hindu understanding of the world is that we all make up the totality of God. Everything is God. TM uses an unproven theory of Einstein's to assert this oneness by quantum field theory, then postulates that meditation connects practitioners to this quantum field by using a thought or a mantra as a vehicle to go in that field. Furthermore, ceremonies like the yagya or the puja, traditionally religious, are reframed by TM as technologies that influence the quantum field through sound vibrations, despite the words they chant having meaning that praises religious figures and divas. TM markets these rituals as non-religious services and scientific, often for huge fees. The results can tear apart marriages and loved ones, according to experts. As an aside, divas in these prayer ceremonies are essence or qualities of the universe manifested in anthropomorphic forms. God, the eternal absolute, which is everything in this religion, is understood to them as a quantum field that underlines our reality, holding all particles and forces on those particles. It is everything, but it has the characteristics of God as they describe it to be unbounded and eternal and
of total natural law, the will of God.
Well, they call it God. They just call it God. To them, a prayer ceremony or a puja or your TM mantra or a yagya once recited emits a sound vibration which affects this field of God. Therefore, these prayers are scientific to them because they have positive effects on this quantum field they see as God.
Yogic technology of yogic flying.
Therefore, the David Lynch Foundation thinks it's okay to put this puja, which emits positive sounds on the quantum field, and this mantra, which emits positive sounds on this quantum field in schools, because they see it as science. The passages that the yogic flyers recite in their head come from the Yoga Sutras, a religious text. However, reciting causes them to bring about positive effects on the quantum field. TM sees the world made up of one material, that is consciousness. Consciousness is a self-same material thinking up the world. Everything is one material, which means that a human being can react in the same way as a magnet. This means that the square root of 1% of the population can bring about a transition similar to a phase transition in the Meissner effect, causing them to float. Nothing can pass through a magnetic energy field in the Meissner effect, and that's why Transcendental meditation wants this in the military, at least in my opinion. It will bring immortality to a nation and heaven on earth. The same logic being that man is equal to magnets equates to superpowers such as flying, walking through walls, and strength of an elephant. Maharishi deemed this quantum field that is everything that is God to be the field of all possibilities, and if Maharishi says it, it must be true.
Field of all possibilities, you'll be able to do anything, you'll be able to undo anything.
According to renowned physicist Peter Watt, virtually every theoretical physicist in the world rejects all of this as nonsense and the work of a crackpot. TM is religion, and that would be fine if it didn't hurt people. I'm gonna say that one more time.
And now, a word.
Religion is fine so long as it doesn't hurt people. According to sociologists Rodney Stark and William Simmons Bainbridge, TM's science of creative intelligence is laced with parables and metaphysical postulates rather than anything that could be recognized as conventional science. In the opinion of sociologist Cynthia Hume, when is a path to enlightenment which sponsors rituals to deities and is based on meditation that deploys the names of gods not a religion? These monks, pundits, recite holy scripture, and the scripture emits positive energy on the quantum field, but the quantum field has all the qualities of God. The nuns are the same thing, except they can't be around men when they're on their period, purportedly. But, what's the scientific reason for women not being able to be around men on their period? Well, I have no idea. The nuns are called the Mother Divine. A major thesis point here, transcendental meditation isn't just religious in nature, as the U.S. government states. It's just a religion. And everything else is just language games in order for you to get into the front door and start meditating and meditating and meditating.
So there was social pressure not to question.
It was more than social pressure. The movement described it in physics in something called superfluidity, when helium changes its state in very cold temperatures, before it becomes fluid, it becomes chaotic. And they call that the phase transition. So anything that was going on that the movement didn't like, they described it as phase transition things. So there was a document you had to fill out before every course, and it asked things like, have you seen an astrologer? Have you been to a psychologist? Have you read any other books on spirituality other than Maharishi's? And it was called the Phase Transition Supplement.
TM, in my opinion, is reminiscent of Scientology, as they both sound like bad science fiction with similar structures, but TM is the opposite in intent, as Scientology wanted to be religion for tax purposes, in my opinion, while TM wanted to become science to get into government, in my opinion. Because science seeks to understand the world, and this Hindu doctrine believes everything that is the world is God, it's easier to pass this off as science to people as long as you don't show the hopping. But some of this hopping exists online, and here we are. Plus, TM codes their language. Oh boy, they have a loaded language. TM doesn't use phrases for God like God, Brahm, or Atma often. Not since the 1970s, but they will use those phrases. They will more likely use the phrase creative intelligence, or they will use the scientific jargon, the unified field of pure consciousness. The result of all this scientific jargon is a group of people talking like they're from Mars. Outsiders don't have a clue to what's going on, and I believe that's somewhat on purpose. It allows the in-group to reveal information slowly to outsiders. During this recruitment process, there may be just stuff that one might just have to accept that one can't just fully understand. Looking at Transcendental meditation, it's hard to argue a lot of points because initially, one can't understand the language TM uses to assert its claims. What the f is a Meissner effect? TM fails to give important context clues or alters language meanings, and by not establishing these new perimeters of meaning to the uninitiated, newcomers may find themselves up a creek without a paddle, unable to reality test their world. If one reconstructs language, one can reconstruct reality. By calling it a rigid science, it reaffirms to the group that what the leader says is true. Science wouldn't say one could fly, but it does if you change the meaning of what science is. To TM, religion is the same thing as science, and the implications of this redefinition of language is scary because faith is belief, and science is a rigid, empirically evaluated, methodologically tested, but ultimately fallible framework to view our world, and they are not the same thing. Transcendental meditation's effort to pair Hinduism with science is not limited to prayer ceremonies for money, but a whole approach to health. And that's where it just begins. Transcendental meditation believes the body is based off of astrology, Hindu deities, and holy texts, and they use this framework to treat diseases like cancer with sound waves.
Dr. Tony Nader is a physiologist and known as one of the greatest scientists of our age because he is able to combine modern science with the ancient Vedic science.
What David Lynch is advertising here is Maharishi's Ayurvedic approach to health. In other words, just absolute nonsense. Tony Nader, the king of the universe took Hindu literature, divided the scripture to correspond with the human body, and had Hindu monks, or what is called priests, or what TM calls pundits, record chants to that body part.
You can see here now, Rig Veda has started.
So say you have a problem with, cancer in your lungs or chest. They recite these texts according to that body part to relieve stress. And this is why language matters. Are they treating karmic impressions on the physiology, or a biological response in the atomic nervous system? And what the fuck does that have to do with cancer in my chest? Either way, David Lynch is promoting healing from holy texts, so we could just call this what it is. It's faith healing. Any treatment for any disease frightens me, especially because TMers are prone to believe in magical thinking. This product is framed in such a way that people will achieve perfect health. The name of the company you contact for this service is called the Vedic Sound Service Team of the Maharishi College of Perfect Health International.
So Ayurveda will be projected as the most supremely evolved system of perfect health from both points of view, prevention and cure.
To me, when I hear that, I hear a advertisement for perfect health. On the King of the Universe's sound website, Vedic sound website, he briefly mentions that this faith healing he deems to be a science is supposed to be alongside medicine or other procedures, which is not good. He's still treating cancer and AIDS with recordings of prayers, and these people also believe in levitation, so who knows what they believe.
From whatever medicine one is taking or whatever procedure one is going through. So it's a powerful, supportive, healing, uplifting, balancing mechanism.
Who knows what the human cost of this is? Healing by prayer and selling prayer. But I want to mention that he said that this is a supportive thing, so it isn't medicine in itself. I hope people listen. He also said that he found the fabric of immortality. I don't know. I don't even know what that means, so I can't criticize it. It doesn't sound like medicine. I see this as exploitation. People may not get necessary care, and people are spending hundreds of dollars on this care. To put it lightly, this sucks. I don't want this around anybody, let alone vulnerable communities. Communities that the David Lynch Foundation seeks to serve. David Lynch Foundation initiates people in battered women's shelters, jails comprised of mostly non-violent drug offenders, inner-city schools, people with PTSD, etc. Vulnerable communities.
There's objective science, and that's, what most science is that we hear about. But Vedic science is subjective science. And so it happens in the human being.
TM redefines it as a scientific framework verified by meditation, or what they call subjective science. Science through individual experience rather than objective science, which would be a rigid methodology, which means it's not science. Much like creationism's response to evolutionary theory, SCI attempts to quantify spirituality through meditation and in turn rationalize and structure science around spiritual principles. This creates an entire worldview in which concepts like levitation becomes feasible within their redefinition of language. Because of this language shift, TM distances itself from being labeled as religious, instead claiming to be science-based and therefore secular.
It's not a religion.
It has nothing to do with religion.
No, it's nothing to do with religion.
This positioning allows TM to navigate around accusations of promoting religion while still incorporating deeply spiritual and philosophical ideas, especially from the Vedic tradition.
Is it a religion? No.
Their classification of themselves as secular also enables access to government funding, as they often argue that their practices does not fall under any specific religious category.
Non-religious.
TM frequently uses the term Veda, which in Sanskrit means knowledge, to describe their teachings. What is this knowledge? Well, it would be what most would characterize as Hindu. They also use the term Vedic. Vedic science is drawn from the ancient Hindu doctrines written in the Iron Age. These texts, considered foundational to Hinduism, provide knowledge that, in TM's perspective, informs everything from health, architecture, and astrology. As mentioned before, Tony Nader recorded chants from these Vedic texts to treat diseases, claiming they're scientific. TMers believe Vedic knowledge knowledge is universal technology that predates any organized religion, including Hinduism. TM asserts that Hinduism merely adopted these technologies, but they have existed from the beginning of time, therefore transcends all faith. TM claims that Vedic knowledge forms the root of all religious traditions. For example, when Jesus spoke of the kingdom of heaven within you, TM interprets this as a reference to meditation. Similarly, when the philosopher Socrates said, "Know thyself," TM claims he was talking about what Maharishi called creative intelligence and what most people would call God. This reinterpretation allows TM to present itself as a form of universal knowledge, thereby making it more palatable to a broader audience, including clergy and practitioners of other faiths. These clergy, who act as spokespeople, do not tell you this detail about TM's philosophy, or just as likely, they don't know. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi would say TM has nothing to do with religion, but only because he redefined what most would see as religious to be scientific, and thus created a sacred science that I see as very harmful. In summary, Transcendental Meditation employs Hindu metaphysics, Hindu prayers to Hindu gods with Hindu monks and Hindu nuns doing Hindu rituals under a guy who calls himself Maharaja Adaraja Raja Ram, or King of Rama. It's a religion. Barry Makovsky from the University of South Carolina calls it a stealth religion. And while most remain in the fringe with no belief associated, that's part of the business model.
All glory to Maharishi, Gurudev, and the entire tradition of Vedic masters. All glory to all of you, all of those connected and who participate in the organization, management, programs, and actually even simple meditation at home that are doing that transformation based on Maharishi's teaching.
The belief that one can jump on rubber mats and bring about better stock prices or weather patterns or end war has no foundation. Nevertheless, the Transcendental Meditation Organization has people jump up and down war zones.
So people, not myself, but other friends, were sent into war zones in Iran, Nicaragua, Mozambique, and they would go into hotels covered with foam rubber, bouncing up and down, and then they would produce research saying that the conflict stopped.
Transcendental meditation is a carrot on a stick, endlessly promising a solution to an ever-looming apocalypse. You might think that training people to jump on mats wouldn't require a lot of money. Well, you'd be wrong, apparently. This costs big money. Now keep this in mind. People who are donating want a better world. These people are good people, and they think they are doing the right thing. Maharishi took advantage of these people's goodness and monetized it. There's a belief in TM that their practice can stop car crashes from occurring or wars from breaking out. The reason the Cold War didn't break out was people thought happy thoughts, bought TM's mantras, and hopped around a lot. Maharishi in the late 90s found that selling houses could bring sustainable peace, and Maharishi built peace creating real estate. To me, this is just a thinly veiled real estate scheme. TM professes that the orientation of the building will bring about monetary wealth, success, and good karma. Most of TM's money is actually in real estate. It's mostly just property speculation. They sit on properties, let them decay, and then sell them for a large price. So if they are a cult, they are a cult of landlords. Transcendental meditation sidesteps a lot of Hindu qualities to be commercial. There's no selflessness and righteous action that one must take to become liberated from birth and death cycles. Just keep on doing your program. Neither does one have to forgo one's money or possessions. In fact, money is a byproduct of good karma. To get good karma, one has to pay for courses or prayer ceremonies, and good karma brings about more money.
My then husband would blame his business failures on me because I wasn't going to program. So instead, he donated money to support his ex-girlfriend on the Mother Divine program, which is like the convent, except it's not like the Catholic Church where you join the convent, they support you. They have to continually recruit for money. So he would give money to her so that her thoughts, they didn't use the word prayers, her thoughts would benefit his business to counteract the negative influence of me not going to program and causing multiple bankruptcies.
Ethics is rarely mentioned in TM, but I have been told that bad people doing bad things is because of stress. And if you stop stress in the world, people become good. Essentially, the worse one acts, the worse the world becomes. The more one meditates and the better one acts, the better the world becomes. Maharishi says, just as a stone thrown into a pond produces waves that reaches all extremities of the pond, any thought, word, or action produces waves into the atmosphere, and these waves travel in all directions and strike against everything in the atmosphere. They produce some influence in every level of creation. Maharishi's stone toss of karma works as a social contract, with the exception that thoughts have literal consequences. Another thing is that the consequences of actions are up to the group to decide. I have heard stories of former TMers pressured into doing things out of fear that the world might blow up.
He knows what he's doing. He doesn't care how he's affecting people's lives. He wants their money and he wants power.
Maharishi wasn't the first mystic to take an interest in modern science. Swami Vivekananda and Paramahansa Yogananda spoke extensively of discoveries of modern physics, seeing that science coincided with their religion. Maharishi would pick up the pieces later when he traveled west and wrote 1964's Science of Being, Art of Living, which would echo these beliefs. Vivekananda believed that since we were all byproducts of the cosmic body of God, we could harness the powers of God once enlightened. Vivekananda stated each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity by controlling nature, external and internal. Maharishi often cited the Yoga Sutras, stating that in the vicinity of yoga, hostile tendencies are eliminated.
By a few groups of experts in natural law in the country practicing Maharishi's transcendental meditation and yogic flying. Stress, strain, and problems in national life will be eliminated. Scientific research shows that yogic flying produces increased brain coherence, and harmony is generated throughout society. The programs of my Natural Law Party are scientific and reliable. I invite you to place your confidence in us.
According to one of the heads of Transcendental Meditation, this is just a hopping phenomenon as of right now. But God willing, people will fly.
It's hopping, it's not floating at this point. It's just a hopping phenomenon, you just hop along.
Has anyone seen anyone fly?
Now, if Transcendental Meditation had its way, this man would be the education secretary.
Consciousness is the most basic element of life, yet the knowledge of consciousness is missing from education. Our programs for developing consciousness will enrich the existing state and private schools. I don't know in this generation, but throughout the history of the world, it's been recorded again and again that people have been known to have the ability to actually fly.
In every single private interview I have done, people directly or indirectly told me they were primed for the experience of yogic flying. They were told what they would and should experience, and then they experienced it. This makes me believe their bliss is just suggestion. People laugh and giggle when they're jumping around. They do it in groups, so it would stand to reason that there is a social contagion. There's always the possibility, and I would say extreme possibility, that maybe the mind is a bit fuzzy after meditating. Some meditators have told me that there's a fake it until you make it attitude, and eventually you'll get that feeling of bliss. This is an opinion statement, but this appears to be a type of placebo effect that is found in all types of ceremonies in every race, religion, and culture. This just so happens to include rubber mats. Human beings are social animals. It's why network TV invented the laugh track. From what I know, this is only studied by fellow levitators, so what's going on in the brain has not been measured without bias, at least to my knowledge.
The longer you did it, the less spontaneous it felt. But certainly in the beginning, it felt as if somebody had pushed you across the room.
The practice of TM and yogic flying will create world peace.
I remain unconvinced, and the onus is on them to prove something like that. If it's not suggestion, what is it? Adherents are instructed to say over and over and over and over every 15 seconds, relationship of body and akasha, lightness of cotton fiber. Akasha means space in Sanskrit. Why is the magical phrase in 2 languages? Oh, I don't know. I don't care. The phrase can cost $1,000 to learn, so I guess you're welcome. I can only suspect that elements such as exhaustion and mental repetition may factor in, but the people I have interviewed disagree. Patrick Ryan recounts his experience of watching people getting naked and watering plants because of this. TMers often recite a verse from the Rig Veda. I'll put it on screen for a moment. This verse from the Rig Veda has nothing to do with levitation, to my knowledge, but somehow it builds up the event to feel like something is really happening. The Rig Veda is not a secret tome, it's a standard religious text. It's at your local library. They're only gaining momentum by these mats being foam and bouncy. They're bouncy mats. Now, Transcendental Meditation originally called this all secret knowledge, and they said the CIA was trying to get at it. This was to build up the flying, and it worked. Robert Jay Lifton says one of the criteria of a totalistic environment promotes specific patterns of behavior and emotion in such a way to have arisen spontaneously from within the environment, while it's actually been orchestrated. Survivor Gina Catena recounts during group practice of the TM City program, a spontaneous wave or liftoff may occur during flying, and a group of individuals bounce about in unison with cheering or laughing aloud. This is called a wave of bliss. This has been orchestrated through suggestion. Patrick Ryan recounts people who were disabled, who had no use of their legs, wanting to levitate. However, they did not gain the ability to fly. Or fat people who had a higher enlightenment status, unable to hop as high. This is proof to me that everyone is just using their legs and not recognizing it. Also, this is very bad for your knees. It's very bad for your back. People shouldn't move around this way. It's worth noting that Dr. Bevan Morse is not a traditional doctor. Most people here are not normal doctors. He's more of a honey bear squeeze ball container than anything. When I use the word doctor, remember I'm using the word with the caveat that they got their doctorate from a university that doesn't believe in gravity as a constant. David Lynch is also a doctor. The two have a doctorate in world peace. MIU is accredited, much like Hubbard College of Administration International. Most of what David Lynch is advertising is just the basic meditation, although Lynch espouses the pseudo-science of the group, which includes the ability to fly. David Lynch himself is a yogic flyer.
Yes, I am a yogic flyer.
No one has seen people fly because people cannot fly. Legal action was brought about to the organization by many. Patrick Ryan, Diane Hindle, and a man named Robert Krupinski. He brought forth 40-some people affected by the TM organization. Krupinski attested to suffering both psychological and physical troubles during his time at the organization. He was awarded $137,890 for fraud and negligence. There was an appeal, and it was settled out of court. The organization has stated that people could have the ability to fly, to walk on water, to transmute your body through material surfaces, and a variety of other supernatural feats. One of these purported supernatural feats were immortality.
That you become invincible, you become immortal also. And again, no one's showing that.
The man who spoke of immortalityism is dead. It's deceased. No longer with us. Yep. Curious.
What about the Maharishi? How far can he fly?
Well, I would imagine Maharishi could fly any distance, but he not in the mode of demonstrating such things to the world, because it's a different thing.
Have you seen him fly?
No, I haven't.
Maharishi says, there is no place and will never be a place for the weak. The strong one will lead, and if the weak one does not wish to follow, then there will be no place for him. Where light dominates is no place for darkness. There is no room in the age of enlightenment for ignorant people. The ignorant will become enlightened by a few of these already enlightened. Nature will not allow ignorance to survive. She cannot. The non-survival of the weak has always been the law or axiom of nature. Alleged Environmental Controls by Gina Catena. An initiate is told never speak the mantra out loud. Katena alleges that this allows initiates to be trained to keep secrets for his or her own good. Katena alleges that this leads to mandated silence in meditation domes or enforced weeks of group silence on advanced courses. She also alleges that monastic branches of TM maintain a tightly controlled schedule. Adherents watch edited versions of televised news permitting only good news for course participants. Meditators create environmental influence for world peace, thus increasing global good news. Exposure to negativity from bad news would taint pure consciousness, hindering their spiritual evolution. In this way, participants gently learn to ignore bad news and uncomfortable information. Quote, "The thought reform victim then negates uncomfortable information as it stems from negativity or from ignorance." Retrospective evaluation of positive news events is designed to demonstrate spontaneous support of nature because of super radiance effect from group TM city practice. This propaganda creates mystical enthusiasm in adherents. Nothing more.
Index New York up 13.01 points and trading volume highest in 3 weeks. USA 1983 inflation rate down to 3.8%. USA gross national product growth rate stabilized at a balanced, sustainable level. Life Insurance Corporation of India gives highest bonus ever to policyholders. Egyptian foreign minister foresees end to terrorism in Middle East. Terrorism in USA down 40%.
Maharishi bombards course participants with advanced TM knowledge recordings. Maharishi drones the same information again and again. The listener's mind relaxes and absorbs the knowledge without question. Around the world, there are buildings architecturally designed to Maharishi Shtipacha Veda specifications. This unique milieu is different from other building environments, but each peace palace will resemble all other such palaces in the world. This supports an inner dissociation from the outside world for those residing within palace confinement.
Solenoids generate little teeny magnetic fields that are then generated between the temporal lobes, all right? And the pattern that's generated across will, after about 15 minutes, in the dark, with the eyes closed, produce experiences that are very similar to many, many mystical experiences. Poets, writers, creative people, artists are remarkably sensitive to these magnetic fields and remarkably sensitive to mystical experiences.
We all know, the nature of your artistry, and I think forever people are going to wonder what the significance of the ironing board behind you is.
I was just going to say, you've got a sharp eye, Dr. Swan. This is an ironing board we're featuring today. Big Jai Gurudev to Maharaja Adiraj Rajaram, the perfect first ruler of the global country of world peace, who's out every day, bringing Maharishi's teaching, peace on earth, enlightenment for the human beings every day. And I just wanted him to know that I support him 100%. And all of you, working with him, you're so fantastic. And I thank every single one of you for what you've said to me today. And thanking you all for what you're doing in the world. I've heard from Dr. Swan that consciousness is rising, collective consciousness is rising, even though when we turn on the TV, we see, many monstrous things. And I guess the Kali Yuga still has to go on to sowing what people have been reaping, but consciousness, world consciousness is rising, and this is very, very good. We just wish it would go faster.
Happy CC, happy GC, happy unity to David. Through you, heaven on earth for all. Through you, heaven on earth for all.
Jai Gurudev.
These kings were appointed by the Maharishi and are the logical conclusions to the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's thoughts on government. According to the yogi, demise of democracy will be a sign of rising coherence in world consciousness, specifically the demise of democratic systems of administration, particularly in India, the world's largest democracy. Damn democracy, Maharishi said. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of hope. It's the greatest crime against the life of a country. Yeah, TM has been at this for a while. The Transcendental Meditation Organization at one point brought about theocratic political party in India. The Ajarabarat Party, or the Invincible India Party, ran on a theocratic mode of government. On their website, now archived like a car salesman, they talk out both sides of their mouth, praising secularism, but also believing everything in India should be capital V Vedic. Administration, education, healthcare systems, defense, economics, foreign policy, agriculture, means of livelihood, etc. And here is most likely the political ideology of Transcendental Meditation's kings. The objective seems to be to bring about an age of enlightenment that would make the world into a utopia. This utopia they are building is a capitalist utopia with a top-down hierarchy. You and me, well, we don't have crowns, so I guess we're the ones at the bottom. Tony is the one at the top. This is far as I know. As far as I know, the kings are the ones who get to oversee the currency of their own central bank. I don't even know if it's a one-world central bank. They say that they are not religious and are not aiming to usurp government function in any way. This is even though the guy at the head is calling himself King of Rama, and the person who made these people kings state that he wants them to rule the world. So,
And then Maharishi said, now, very, very special words. He said, and then Raja Ram will rule from there the world. Maharishi said, Raja Ram will rule the world from there.
Why? What are we going to do tomorrow night?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
According to the Global Country of World Peace, the domain of the Global Country of World Peace is consciousness, the prime mover of life, the ground state of natural law, the field of all possibilities. The Global Country of World Peace is a non-political, non-religious global organization and does not usurp any functions of existing governments, nor does it replace them in any way, and to create a time for the world family that is free from struggle and suffering, and in which every individual will be enlightened, spontaneously functioning in accordance with all the laws of nature. On this basis, people will not make mistakes in daily life, and every level of government will enjoy automation and administration, problem-free administration for ultimate progress and achievement. Woof. Okay, so what does that mean? I believe that through supernatural powers, or rather what they see as science, these kings will try to govern over us. In one interview, David Lynch says that they will make it where one couldn't even hurt another person.
It gets to the point where you couldn't hurt another human being.
I guess just let's entertain the notion that these kings can govern the totality of the cosmic body. Do we have free will under these kings? Are we all Alex DeLarge, unable to act a certain way under Tony? Do they influence the thought process of the individual through their TM science?
He ceases to be a wrongdoer. He ceases also to be a creature capable of moral choice.
It certainly seems that way. In a February 1978 magazine article in World Government News, the rise of collective consciousness is illustrated to be kind of like at least in my opinion, a form of mind control. The scientific phenomenon they are using is called the Josephson effect, or rather, a tunneling between superconductors, which are TMers meditating or people bouncing on their butt to affect the world for the better. Meaning free will is manipulated through the enlivening of a field of God. That's one interpretation of what King Tony is setting out to do. Maybe they're just playing dress-up. This would all be silly if no one took this seriously, but plenty people do. These kings, I'm sorry to say, have a lot of political power. David Lynch says in his book, Catching the Big Fish, Transcendental Meditation itself is not a religion. It's not against any religion. It's not against anything. And I really, really wish I could believe that. Remember, David Lynch is currently being sued by a Muslim girl. In my opinion, the David Lynch Foundation's lawsuit is a microcosm of something much, much larger. The reason for this anti-secular doctrine becomes more clear when you understand that the Transcendental Meditation Organization has ties to Hindu fascist organizations.
But I do want to distinguish that quote-unquote Transcendental Meditation trademarked as taught by the Guru Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, whose Indian part of this organization supports Modi in India, by the way.
That's important to say because Modi is the head of India and is authoritarian and trying to push Hinduism and discriminate against Muslims and everybody else.
Looking over some old Transcendental Meditation publications, it's weird to see your favorite film director praising a purported cult leader, but it's also weird to see him being pictured beside self-professed kings and Hindu nationalist organizations. You need to understand, Transcendental Meditation is filled with good people, normally very intelligent people with a heterodox belief system. I have yet to meet a TMer that was a Hindu nationalist. Most, I'd imagine, don't know about this. This just came out recently, but may have been brewing for maybe decades. It became much more open around 2016-ish. This is the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. This is the largest paramilitary group in the world. The Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, or the RSS, is a paramilitary branch of the Bharatiya Janata Party, or rather, the BJP. They are often in alliance with the Vishvad Hindu Parishad group, which has a very similar logo to Transcendental Meditation. The RSS, the BJP, and the VHP are all lumped into an alphabet soup of pure hatred, and you bet your sweet bippy that Transcendental Meditation has ties to these far-right organizations. These Hindutva organizations are fascist in that they take direct political inspiration from leaders such as Hitler and Mussolini, the leaders of the German and Italian fascist parties. They are comparable in ideology, just Hindu supremacy. You know the killer of Gandhi? Yeah, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh birthed him. Their scapegoats are mostly Muslims. According to Mike Downey, in a speech he gave at the International Cultic Studies Association,
a portion of fees collected from TM instruction, about 10%, is sent offshore and eventually benefits the organization's Hindu fundamentalist schools in India, which have a close relationship with right-wing Hindutva organizations and the Indian government.
If what Mike alleges is true, there should be no reason you should get a mantra from Transcendental Meditation as they teach children to fly at these far-right back schools. On their official school website, you see Ganesh Varma, the nephew of the late Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, parading around with Hindu nationalists. Verma's role is using the school to indoctrinate children with the ideology of Transcendental Meditation pseudo-science. The goal is to get every kiddo levitating in India, or at least the square root of 1%. Ganesh Varma was given a special title of Vedic Vidya Martand, or Vedic Sunseer, by Hindu nationalists. This is the leader of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh he's hanging out with. According to NPR, India's constitution defines it as a secular republic, but the BJP has sought to transform the country into a Hindu nation, with special rights for members of its majority faith in recent years. Minority Muslims have increasingly become victims of hate crimes and lynchings. I want you to recall that Transcendental Meditation claims it's secular and that it wants to bring about world peace. The Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, Vishvad Hindu Parishad, and the Bharatiya Janata Party are best known for the ransacking of a Muslim mosque in 1992. The mosque was called the Babri Masjid. These Hindu nationalists believed that they had the right to build a Rama temple there. This site was claimed to be the deity's birthplace. One of these people who allegedly orchestrated this was L.K. Advani. Another alleged key player was Ashok Singhal. This goal was to utilize anti-Muslim sentiment to gain political favor from the Hindu populace. In the wake of the mosque's destruction, 2,000 people died due to communal violence, mostly Muslims. Many other mosques were also torn down. According to the philosophy of Ashok Singhal, the universe would only be Hindu by the year 2030, which is similar to Maharishi's vision of a global nation under Hinduism, or rather what he calls Veda. Maharishi had meetings with Ashok Singhal and L.K. Advani. The results of the meetings are unknown, but it is worth noting that earlier that year, in 1992, the months leading up to the December 6th destruction of the Islamic mosque, Maharishi started planning a project in the same city, Ayodhya, the Maharishi Ramayana University. He wrote 2 books on the subject. According to Maharishi, the city of Ayodhya is the capital of Raja Ram on earth. This is a major talking point of Hindutva, or Hindu nationalism. Soon afterwards, Maharishi started a relationship with Narendra Modi, who is now the Prime Minister of India and the leader of the BJP. Narendra Modi would still be an ally even after he committed ethnic cleansings in Gujarat, India in 2002. His endorsement is even advertised on a TM-labeled blog. In 2002, in Gujarat, India, riots began after Muslims presumably bombed a train of Hindu pilgrims coming from the Babri Masjid. Many academics blame Modi and his staff for escalating these communal riots. The police allegedly gave the rioters lists of Muslim-owned properties to sack and destroy.
Hindu houses were left untouched, while Muslim houses right next door were destroyed.
They allegedly looked on during the mass murders and mass rapes that took place. This led to the death of 800 Muslims and 250 Hindus. The violence was systemically directed towards Muslims. The fact that Transcendental meditation gets cozy with people who destroy mosques is alarming to me. The fact that Transcendental meditation gets cozy with people who commit ethnic cleansings against Muslims is alarming to me. I believe that Transcendental meditation wants a one-world government governed by what I perceive to be Hinduism, which is alarming to me. These ties speaks volumes of what Transcendental meditation's intent is with these pujas and prayers in American public schools. To me, when a Muslim child or a Christian child or any child is forced to bow down before an altar to a Hindu guru when they don't want to, this isn't just an oopsie-poopsie. This is calculated. This is wrong, and this is hateful. In January of 2024, Tony Nader led a mission to have a group of 10,000 people meditating in India. To my knowledge, it was the largest gathering of meditators ever, maybe one of the largest prayer groups ever, although I would imagine not a lot of them knew that they were praying. One of the people that took the stage at the convention for world peace was Mohan Bhagwat, the head of the fascist Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. The leader of the paramilitary aperture of the dominant party in India went before 10,000 people and proclaimed that Veda was a science.
His science is and will always be fulfilled by Vedas.
Which would mean that Bhagwat pronounced TM's understanding of science to be a science. Not only that, he praised Tony, calling him the title Raja, or rather king. Tony was elated. Days later, the sacked mosque, now a Rama temple, was finally constructed. Both Mohan Bhagwat and Narendra Modi spoke before the crowd. Here's the king of the universe at the raising of the temple. Tony was beaming. In my opinion, the World Peace Conference was to get 10,000 ignorant Westerners to pray to Tony's gods in order to bring good fortune to a Hindu temple that was erected on a destroyed mosque. To many, the Babri Masjid demolition is very much a symbol of anti-secularism. It's celebrated by Hindu nationalists as such. It is a symbol of Hindu nationalism by Hindus who want an exclusive Hindu nation. This Rama temple enjoys the freedoms that this religious minority doesn't. It would be a shame if some dumb video essayist would find footage of Tony hanging out in front of a once destroyed mosque that was turned into a Hindu temple, especially if Tony's front group was being sued by a Muslim girl for putting Hindu prayers in schools. It would be a shame if all the world knew that Tony did this. It would be a goddamn shame. Okay, that's the nephew of the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi Guresh Varma, right next to Bobby Roth and David Lynch. I'll show you him hanging out with right-wing political leaders that you probably don't know, but just know that there's a lot of these ties. Like, it isn't a small thing that I'm pointing out. The organization's adherents are mainly liberal and have no idea about this. Maharishi was a monk from India. He wanted to spread his religion and culture. That shouldn't be a controversial thing to say. There's a reason why people are chanting to his gods. Women in TM wear saris, children have to learn Sanskrit, and 90% of people in the in-group of TM don't eat beef. The goal was a cultural and religious thing, but always at odds with American customs and fear of flack by critics. TM is structured in Hindu supremacy, but in order to function in the West, TM has to compromise with American customs through separating in-groups and out-groups and lies about their intent. All these Hindu supremacists Guresh is hanging out with, that's probably TM's intent. Their intent is, in my opinion, a Hindu religious ethno-state. of what they deemed to be the supreme science brought about by people jumping on rubber mats for superpowers. Maharishi became affiliated with the hippies in the late 60s. However, contemporary Hindutva as an ideology really re-solidified in the 80s. Here, Maharishi began networking with politicians and his rhetoric changed. Afterwards, he set up 2 democratic political parties that both failed in the 90s. Then, Maharishi got angry and denounced democracy. He installed kings, as I guess you do, and then called them rulers of the world through divine providence. At least that's what I think they're doing. In 2016, the same year Ganesh Varma started hanging out with paramilitary leaders, there was a whole presentation by the architecture head of TM about this mosque's demolition and its rebuilding. Not one peep about the 2,000 people who died in communal violence, however. Dr. Ike Hartman tells how King Tony plans to build a monument to himself by the way of a palace where he will govern the world. This is where I believe, my personal belief, he will try to bring about the Sat Yuga, or the Golden Age, and restore Ayodhya to its roots. I don't know.
The revival of Ram Janmabhoomi movement for a great Ram temple in Ayodhya is the call of the hour.
This administration building includes a place where every king, rather than face each other, must face east to stop conflict with their peers. Hartman describes how lower consciousness servants will be separate from the higher consciousness leaders. The servants will be on the lower levels and will bring coffee and chai only through an underground network of elevators. They have plans for a gold-plated Pope mobile, a tram, a Hindu hovercraft. Those horses are not actually horses, but electric horses.
Those are pearls that were his eyes, a fear death by water.
Robert Jay Lifton's 8 Criteria of Thought Reform in TM from the lived experiences of Gina Catena, Mystical Manipulation. Catena alleges any positive event in life is explained as support of nature for living a life of purity. Individual behavior and hard work are never credited with resulting fortune, but rather the result of mystical nature's support. However, negative outcomes in life are blamed on the individual to gain appropriate support of nature. One is encouraged to purchase expensive yagyas, which are mystical prayer ceremonies costing thousands of dollars, donate more time or money to spreading the teachings, or attending more expensive advanced meditation programs. Maharishi claims descendants from an ancient Indian holy tradition that provides an exclusive connection for mystical divination. To TMers, TM City, the lifestyle of Maharishi Ayurveda may become the only recognized path to enlightenment. Individual fulfills directives from their leaders to recruit and retain others completely unaware that they spontaneously are acting on the wishes of Maharishi's recruitment effort. She also alleges that spokespersons for the higher knowledge can seem more accessible than an abstract deity. The leader and group dynamic offer immediate validation for good behavior rather than relying on an internalized value set, which lacks feedback. TM leadership rewards good behavior through praise. She also alleges that to a TMer working for the higher good of global enlightenment, world peace, perfect health, and personal enlightenment provides the noblest motives. TM is deceptively presented to the business and educational communities for deep rest and release of stress. TM teachers are aware of their selective deception while making recruitment presentations. True believers justify deception, believing that the slow revelation of this path to enlightenment and pure bliss is in the best interest of new recruits. The true believer lacks malfeasance. He believes in the ultimate goodness of their deception. The ends justify the means.